In the small, rural, southwest Tennessee county of McNairy, one man stood up against gang violence, prostitution, illegal stills, murder, and various other vices to put the small county on the map, and made his name a legend. That man was Buford Hayes Pusser. His story has been told and retold many times, usually more fiction than fact, but the legend himself is a story all of his own. The man bettered McNairy County in ways that most people never realize. The people of McNairy County either loved or hated him. There was no middle ground.
Some people in McNairy County loved him, some hate him. You seem like you don't find anybody really just kind of so-so. They're either one or the other. They either thought a lot of him or whatever. Now, he wasn't perfect, don't get me wrong, and he was no saint, but I tell you what, he was dealing with a whole different group of people that are out there today. Back in his time, the bootleggers, the mafia type, or what I call the Dixieland Mafia, you know, that was a gang of sorts. He was fighting a group of people that ranged from, you know, Chicago, Detroit, down to Dixie.
Buford Pusser was a man who stood for what he believed in and would not back down against anyone. From local crime gangs to nationwide mobs, he would not be intimidated, no matter what the cost.
My daddy was very open with us about a lot of things concerning that there because of the attempts that had been made on his life. And in doing that, he had to be up front with us. They put contracts out on him, and in doing that also, they had put contracts out on his family members, such as me and my brother at one time. It was very hard to be a small child when your mother is killed by somebody who has shot her when you're 6 years old. You can't understand why they've killed your mother. You know your daddy is sheriff, and you know that's a dangerous job. And then it's really hard to understand that somebody is actually wanting to kill the children. You know, it was a traumatic childhood. However, you know, my dad tried to make it as normal as possible, considering, you know, what we went through.
There was much more to Buford Pusser than most people realize. He was a famous lawman, yes, but he was more than that. Sheriff Pusser had a family that he truly cared for, and though things may have been different than they were for most children, he tried to give the children the best he could at all times. He was a true family man.
Some of my favorite memories, well, I guess because it happens to be here at Christmas time, I've been thinking about it a lot. We always had our family tradition on Christmas was on Christmas Eve, he let us open one package. They always would, my mom and dad, of course, when she was still alive, and then the next morning we would get up and Daddy would cook a big breakfast, and he used to fix biscuits and gravy and quail every Christmas morning, and that's what we would do. And I was telling somebody today, I said, you know, for him to have been such a big guy that was, you know, known for his law enforcement ways, and of course, seems like guns and violence and so much of that, he was such really and truly a gentle giant. So many people don't know that and know what kind of heart and what a tender-hearted guy that he was, and he really was that.
Throughout the numerous tellings of his life story, the family has not always had complete control. In fact, in many instances, the sole control lied in the hands of corporate entities.
The contracts my dad signed in early 1971, and it stated basically we really didn't have a say-so about it. And it was, you know, look at this, you had a guy from McNairy County and a major movie company wanting to do a movie about him. You know, he figured something was better than nothing if they were really going to do this. I don't think he really ever thought they would, but, you know, never dreamed 30-some years later they made another movie.
Though the accuracy of the movies may have been lacking, the heart and intent has been captured by some. Buford has been an inspiration for many, including other celebrities.
We stayed in California. My manager and I was out there, and my attorney had been back and forth with us. When the trip came that we had to go out there to see the basically finished product, I was first terribly upset when I first heard that, I mean, this was going to do a movie, but then they weren't calling Buford Pusser. Then he wasn't going to have a wife and a family, and then you know, the Rock's ethic background. But when I went to Vancouver to meet him, he totally changed my whole perspective. He totally changed my whole perspective because of his intent, his desire, and that he was one of the backbones in why they were doing another movie anyway. He was wanting to see it done, and he was wanting to see because he always had loved that movie as a child, and his daddy off on the road. And once I got to know The Rock and felt his passion that he had for my dad's story and wanting to do this movie, but he didn't feel like it was right for him to be called Buford Pusser because of his ethnic background. He said, I just don't think that would be paying the correct honor and homage to him. He said, so, that's why he wanted to have the name changed.
The legend of Buford Pusser still lives on, and his story is gaining more recognition. The recent remake of Walking Tall, starring The Rock, does not seem to be the end of the line for Buford's legacy. However, there are doubts within the family whether the next remake should even be made.
I just wish they wouldn't do another one if they're not going to put the real story and not use, The Rock, because I'm sure they'll use some actor, no-name actor, or some rising star, person, actor, and they won't even probably know who Buford Pusser is, and that's what's going to really bother me. If they're not going to do it with his spirit, and his intent, I just wish they wouldn't do it.
Buford Hayes Pusser died in a fiery crash on his way home from the McNairy County Fair. Many, including his daughter Dwana, believe that the crash was no accident. The state line mob, along with others, had finally caught up with Buford Pusser.
When it's all said and done, nobody else was standing up for the state against the state line mob, and it was a hellish situation going on down there and what was happening to so many people, and being robbed and taken advantage of, and how many homes it was affecting and breaking up, and it was just, it was just a mess. And, that is one thing I'm proud of my father standing up. We lost a lot, though. We lost a lot, and I lost my mother, and I think eventually I lost my dad's life to it, because I think that was part of why he died at the age he did, because I believe he was murdered, and it still was connections back to that. But when all the arrows are pointing there and everybody's going, no, 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 and you're saying, well, listen, not everything, not all this can be wrong.
Sheriff Buford Pusser's legacy lives on to this day. Throughout McNairy County, in coffee shops and small-town diners, people still speak of the deeds accomplished by this man. His memory will live on in McNairy County for generations, as will his family. Though through tellings and retellings the story may change. The world may not see the Buford Pusser that McNairy County knows. We still know who he was, what he did, and who he loved. Buford Pusser loved his county enough to give his time and his life in order to clean up the county and rid it of the infestation of organized crime.